You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a more modern approach to selling, the application of virtual and hybrid selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I am delighted to be joined by Simon Bowen. Now, Simon is the founder of the Models Method. He's creator of the Genius Model, which is a way in which he helps people, and particularly salespeople, elevate the way that they're communicating by using visual models. So it helps people think better, it accelerates communication, and it's something that he's done around the world. I'm a massive fan of this stuff. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to adapt it into my own thinking as well, Simon. So this is why I'm really excited about the stuff that you're going to be talking to us about today. So welcome, sir.
Pleasure to be here. Opposite side of the world.
Opposite side of the world. And just before we came on air, we were talking about, how stuff has changed so much, the kind of the beauty of what it's meant that we have to do. And I guess that's probably a good starting place for us in that, how things have changed, the shifts in the marketplace that we're experiencing and how salespeople need to shift as well. So, broadly, what are the shifts that you're seeing?
If you think about how the world's changed just in the last 50 years, most selling has come from an industrial age model of selling. And in fact, business has come from an industrial aged model. And the internet particularly democratized information, but it connected people and has given people the license to say, I'm not happy with that. I don't like you. I don't trust you. And I'm going to tell everybody else that they shouldn't trust you. In fact, we've equipped people with the ability to be incredibly judgmental and not put up with pressure-based selling, manipulation, and so on. And so one of the things that's really changed a lot is this movement away from pressure-based selling, what I would call false scarcity and urgency. And false scarcity and urgency is where the sale has been driven by the seller's agenda, which is we need to make the sale, we need to make it fast, we need a higher conversion rate, etc., versus natural urgency, which is the customer's urgency. When does the customer need it by and what happens? And so, we're in a world that's post-pandemic with great social unrest. People can't make sense of it, military conflicts, maybe the economic position of the world is unstable. And so we're in a world now where there's probably a call for greater levels of leadership than there ever have been. And I think there's a greater need for business to be noble, much more noble than we have typically expected of them in the past. I'm really interested in the phrase, it's just business, which is usually used to mean, so long as it's in the name of business, it's kind of okay to not be okay. And let's just unpack it's just business. So it's okay to kind of manipulate a bit, or if it's just in the name of business. And I don't think the world's putting up with that anymore. I think the world is saying, no, there's a need for greater nobility from leaders around the world. And if there's a need for business to be more noble, then the most noble thing that we should do is the way we sell. Selling should be the most noble thing we do. I was having a call with a very large coaching company in the US that coaches functional health practitioners in business. And I was saying that the health practitioners hate having to sell. They hate selling. It's icky. And you and I always laugh about that because people, think selling's icky. And yet, if you really understand selling, I made the comment to them, the sale is the first step in the healing process. And it was kind of a boom mind explosion. I say that again. Well, if you're a functional health specialist or a doctor or whatever, selling the solution to the patient is the first step in the healing process. Now, you can't serve until you sell. And so selling and how we sell should be the most noble thing we do. And so I became obsessed with how could we sell in a pressure-free way? How could we sell without having to rely on manipulative techniques, without having to use, 101 closes, without having to turn the buyer into a captive in order to get the sale. And so this whole idea of buyer safety emerged. I coined this phrase, buyer safety, when the customer feels safer with you than they are without you every step of the way through the sales process. Everything else kind of takes care of itself. every step of the process with you, when the customer feels safer and safer and safer, everything else takes care of itself. And here's the really interesting thing. Fred, we hear a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome in sales. And one of the interesting byproducts of this is when you make the customer safe, the salesperson becomes safe and imposter syndrome diminishes. So everybody's really only buying two things from us, actually. They want to be deeply understood and they want to be made safe. That's what everybody's buying. You want to buy a new piece of equipment for a mine site? Okay, no problem. We really get you. We really get what you're trying to do. We really get mining. We understand it. We know what this equipment needs to do, and you're going to be okay with us. You understand us and you make us safe. Oh, you want to buy life coaching? That's okay. I really get you. I really know where you're coming from. I understand who you are. I understand the challenges that you face. And if you buy my coaching program, you're going to be safe. Oh, you need some legal help? No worries. I really get you. I know the circumstances you're in. I understand the challenges that you're facing with that. I know that you don't feel confident because it's complex, but it's okay. We've got this and we've got you. And by the way, you're going to be safe with me. Everybody's buying two things: that you truly deeply get me and that you've got my back, that I'm safe. Now, actually, you can simplify a lot of things if you understand that. So here's a fundamental question. In all of your marketing and all of your sales, as you map out a step, the question should be, is that step going to make the customer safer or more at risk? Because the underlying tenor of most buying processes is the customer is suspicious. When people have got to buy something, even something voluntarily, I don't want to get ripped off. I'm going to buy a new car because I want a new car, but I don't want to get ripped off. I'm going to go and buy, a new television, but I don't want to get ripped off or buy a dud, And so in every step of your marketing and your sales process, will that step make the customer safer or will it make them feel more at risk? And there's too many cases where the steps are created to serve the urgency and pace of the sales process, and they're not making the customer safer. They're actually putting them more at risk. And so it's a really big topic. I mean, we could talk for hours on this. And I'll give you a real example. My 26-year-old daughter, when she could no longer be on our private health insurance, was searching for her own private health insurance. And then I'll let you talk, Fred. But she's searching for her own private health insurance. And she went to one of these market comparison websites, where you hunt around and look at all the different options in a marketplace, and you have to put your name and your mobile phone number in there to hunt around. Anyway, she's looking around this website and then her phone rings and the guy says, "Oh, hello, Isabel, I'm so-and-so from Compare the Market. And I can see that you're looking at health insurance. And I thought I'd just jump on the phone." We find that when people are looking on the website, it's really helpful if we get on the phone and talk you through what you might need. So, to get started, when was the last time you were in hospital? And she's going, "Hang on, wait a minute. Who are you?" And I'm from the website. I'm from Compare the Market. And we just find it's a good bit of customer service if we help. Now, he's really a salesperson that if he can get her to buy something, he's going to get a commission. And she went, "Mate, I don't even know who you are. And I'm certainly not going to talk about health and hospitals." "Well, if I can find out, the sorts of things you've been to hospital for, I can tell you what you might need and what you don't need." And she went, "No," hung up and never went back to the website. Zero buyer safety in the sales strategy, 100% buyer risk, 100% at risk. And I'll lay out the 5 stages of buyer safety in a minute. There are 5 stages to buyer safety, but no nobility in the way that company's selling. No nobility at all. So it's a big, big deal. How do we make the market safer with us than they would be without us? And you can imagine how everything else, you almost don't need to sell when you address those 2 things. We understand you more deeply and richly than anybody else in the marketplace, and we've got your back. Everything else takes care of itself. It's a big deal.
I love this. I don't want to talk, Simon. I don't need to. No. Look, I'm safe sat here. I know I'm in safe hands for a cracking podcast. Already, there is so much value in the stuff you're saying here, and you're going to take us through the 5 stages. But if
Cool.
I just come back though, and again, just to make sure I
Yeah.
understand it, biosafety. That's where I came across you when we were on a panel, and that became the core of everything we were talking about. I just thought,
Yeah.
yes, love it. It's clear you've put a lot of thought into this. So you don't even need me prompting you and nudging you off track when you've got a track to talk about this. But
Well,
it's sounding then that the starting point, it's the intent, it's the nobility, it's getting the right mindset to want to do this.
yeah,
Then you can start to get into the how to do this. Because without the real honest desire that this is how I actually do want to work, the rest of the stuff is just going to be stages, and it's just be the same as any other old sales process.
yeah.
Slightly better one, perhaps, but it's driven by this nobility thinking.
Well, it's the decisions you make. It's the decisions you make about the sort of company um, that you're going to be. So I'll just share this into the screen so it's easier to see. And we use really, really powerful visual models to explain things, to sell. As you said, the flagship model is one of our flagship sales model is the genius model. We can take the core genius of a company and frame it into a model that takes about 7 minutes to explain. So whether you're building ships for the US Navy, which a client of ours does, or a large payment processing SaaS platform, or a pharmaceutical company, or an engineering firm, or a coaching program, or a mining services company, we can capture the genius of an entire company inside one little framework that takes about 7 minutes to explain. And when you do that, everything changes. When the most senior person on a procurement team says, how come no one's explained this that simply before? You've just won the business.
Mm.
And so there's a decision that companies need to make about where they're going to sit in a marketplace. And it's a pyramid. And every company goes to the market at one of 4 levels. And so most companies, bought into the idea that you need to turn your solution into a product. And so you become a vendor of a product. Now, the thing is, the market buys product based on price. Okay, oh, you've got one of them. How much is it? Right? And so sales companies got pretty annoyed with that and said, our market's only buying on price. Let me just come off screen for a moment. Anyone that says our market's only buying on price just isn't running a convincing enough argument to cause them to buy at a different level of price. And the reason we know that the markets don't just buy on price is because in every single market, there is at least one company that is the most expensive. And they're usually doing pretty well. How could that be? If the market only buys on price, how come one of the companies that is doing better than everybody else is usually always the most expensive? That tells me no market just buys on price. And even in wildly commoditized markets, it's not true that the market only buys on price. A part of the market might buy on price, but you can't say my market buys on price. And there's actually a great book called Somebody Has to Be Most Expensive, Why Not You? And it's a really interesting kind of study. And so the market will buy on price from you. It's more accurate to say my customers only buy on price from me, which means get a better sales conversation, right? So we step into this middle bit where people go, well, I don't like the market buying on price anymore, so I need to figure out what to do. And then we had the whole world for probably 25 years, we had this whole idea of authority-based marketing, push a lot of content out there, become the authority in your marketplace, thought leadership, become a thought leader. Now, here's the problem. Thought leadership is commoditized, completely commoditized. And we know that because if you've seen someone on LinkedIn with 2 people reading their posts who call themselves a thought leader, in your mind, you're going, they're not a thought leader. Because to be a thought leader, you need 2 things. You need an original thought and followers. Now, if you have an original thought and no followers, you're just a really good thinker. And if you've got followers and no original thought, then you're a communicator, right? But people go to the thought leader for information. And usually they want the information for free.
Yeah.
And so what's the level above thought leader? Well, you could become a hero to your clients. And people come to the hero for strength. Now, the thing about that, though, is your client almost becomes a victim and you're constantly saving them. But there's a premium attached to being a hero because you have something that they need. Both hero and thought leader have to be sold on ego. I'm a thought leader or I'm a hero. And that's when imposter syndrome kicks in against ego. It doesn't kick in against impact. When you really make a difference, you don't have to worry about imposter syndrome because you know you're making a difference. So what's the level above hero? Well, every hero has a sage. Luke Skywalker had Was it Obi-Wan Kenobi, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a Star Wars fan, but every hero has a sage. And the interesting thing about the sage is they're often physically smaller and weaker than the hero, and yet so much more powerful. And people go to the sage for wisdom. So even if you sell a hard product, a piece of equipment or something like that, there's the equipment, and then there's what you put around it. And this is the wisdom piece. And people come to the sage for wisdom. And so the sage shows up in the marketplace differently to everybody else. The sage shows up into the marketplace with profound genius, which means they, instead of selling through ego, they sell from wisdom. And so we package company genius into a model so that the model is the expression of your wisdom. They have a powerful calm about them. I coined that phrase really deliberately. They don't sell from pressure. They sell from presence. So when you come into the space with a sage, you just know you're talking to someone who cares about you and has your back, and they know what they're doing. And they're not flustered, and they don't use false scarcity and urgency tactics. They're almost kind of this, if you buy from me, you buy from me. If you don't, you don't. It's okay. But if you don't buy from me, you're going to miss out on the best in the market kind of thing without having to say that. And then they have what I call practical simplicity. You cannot, I'm going to say this clearly in a minute, they move from complexity to clarity. And so we create models, much like this one in front of you, as packages of simple clarity. I think of a model as a package of simple clarity. You can't solve complexity with more complexity. Just let that sink for a minute. You cannot solve a complex product with more complexity. You lose the customer. And so, the sage shows up wildly differently. They show up, they're noble, and they become one of the key components of powerful calm is biosafety. Now, what's really interesting about this is a thought leader can't really sell from the hero space. But what's really the big shift is when you become the sage and you vacate the hero space, who is it that might occupy the hero space now? Who can step in there? If you exit it, who now can fill it?
Well, you're into your customer. Put your customer in there. Yeah, client. Love it. Love it.
We no longer talk about the ideal avatar in our business. We tell people to stop looking for the ideal avatar. The ideal avatar is designed to help you find them on LinkedIn. What's their demographics, their sociographics, their psychographics, and so we can find you on LinkedIn, right? Size of company, number of employees, but that's ideal avatar. We're much more interested in the hero identity of your client. And the hero identity of the client has 4 qualities to it. They have a cause that they're pursuing, a crusade. They have character. They're good people. People want to buy from them. They have capability. They have real genius about what they do that they take to the marketplace, and they have commitment. They're really committed to what they're doing. They're the people I want to work with, but they're heroes. Now, if I can sell to somebody as a hero, I get an entirely different conversation with them than I do if I sell to them as a victim, that I've got to be the hero too. And so I've got to make them safe as the hero. I've got to introduce biosafety and let them know that it's okay to be the hero. And I get to elevate the sage if I have this profound genius, powerful, calm, and practical simplicity. Yeah, I've thought about it deeply. There's a lot going on, which is really just scratching the surface at the moment.
Made it up one afternoon, sat in the garden. No, I love it. It's so elegant. And again, it is something that we talk to salespeople is like, don't try to be the hero. Don't, because you'll come in on your charger. You'll try to make it all about you. As you say, your ego takes over. And I mean, I love it. I mean, I do like Star Wars. I like Harry Potter. I like all sorts of films like that, where actually you look at the hero and they often have quite a few guides, mentors, sages. There probably is a main one who then pulls these other assistants in. Yeah. And they're always keeping them safe. I mean, Harry Potter, he's constantly in danger, but they've all got his back. They're giving him the information. They're helping when they need. Yeah, Luke Skywalker, all sorts of messes, but he's got all these folk around him.
I'm a big Harry Potter fan as well. And that's a really interesting analogy, Fred, because you think about it, all of the people that were his hero. So let's just unpack that. I know it's a weird thing to be talking about on a conversation about sales, but The sages all knew that he had a cause, a crusade, and that was to beat Voldemort. They knew that Harry was here to save the world from evil. So they had to help him to be that hero. They also deeply understood him. They knew that he was orphaned and that he didn't understand what was happening to him, and he had more power than he knew. He couldn't harness it and control it. And they also knew that he was going to stare death in the face. And he knew that they knew that about him. And that made it okay. And they kept him safe in every way that they could. And he knew that if there was any way that they could keep him safe, they would. And some of them died to keep him safe. And so he was willing to take what they were able to offer him, which we call sales, right? Do you want to buy my thing kind of thing? And it's a really interesting analogy. It's quite a powerful analogy to think about. And so if you're standing in the sales space, how are you going to do that? And I think of this idea of buyer safety, and there's so much stuff that we could walk through. I could talk about selling for days on end, but if we think about buyer safety, it is like a funnel that turns a prospect into a customer at one end. And there's kind of 5 stages through here. And it's a sideways funnel because it's a journey. It's not a feed into a trap, if you like. It's funny how, the funnels that are typically drawn are a bit like a fly trap, come to the top and they come out at the bottom. But this end of the funnel is the marketplace. And at this end of the funnel, all of our hero clients are sitting out there looking to engage in some way. But there's this underlying sense of suspicion. Like if I let you know I'm here, are you going to kind of hound me? Are you going to hassle me? Are you going to, the used car salesman thing or salesperson, you're going to spam me, et cetera, et cetera. And so people want safety in anonymity, meaning they want to be able to find out everything about you without you knowing they exist. So how's your website helping them to do that? How's your social media profile helping them to do that? How are your publications helping them to do that? How's your keynote presentations at large public conferences helping them to do that? How are you showing up in the marketplace to let the customer know how much profound genius, powerful, calm, and practical simplicity you have without you even knowing they exist? And then at some point, some people say, I need to get closer to you because the product that everyone's really buying is I want to be closer to you. The product pop stars are trading in is you want to be closer to me. That's all they're trading in. You just want to be closer to me. You want to be me, And
Yeah.
so sports, we want to be closer to me. We all want to be closer to genius, closer to really smart things. And so the person crosses this line, and marketing, this first phase is what we call marketing. So your website, your social media profiles, your publications, your speaking gigs, your advertising, etc. How do your paid ads let people find out how profound the genius is, how powerfully calm the company is, and how practically simple you are without having to raise their hands? And they cross the line. They go, okay, we need to have more of a conversation. Up to this point, it's been hands down. They don't want you to know. And then they know that you've got to find out something about them. But what they want in here is safety in numbers. Okay, I know that you know me, but I'm going to sit at the back of the class, or I'm on your email list, but there must be thousands. So it's not like you know exactly who I am, even though you're emailing me. Or I came to your event and I registered for it, but there's 500 people there. So I'm safe inside the numbers. And this is really the start of the selling process, because selling only starts when we've got a relationship that we can form. And so I think of this bit as they're in the room with you, figuratively speaking. They've been at an event that you've spoken at, they're in your email list or something like that. You know they exist, but they feel like that they've got the safety of numbers. And then as they spend more time with you and they see what your integrity is like, they can see how you show up. There's consistency. What you talk about is smart. There's a lot of wisdom here. You're always powerfully calm. You're not up one day and down the next. You're not manic one day and calm the next. And they can see consistency in the simplicity of how you communicate and package your information. They go, okay, I think I want to reach out and step into this next level where I've got my hand raised, where you can see me and go, okay, what's your question? Down the back of the room. And it takes a lot of guts to raise your hand. Remember, kids in school got a question, but they don't want to raise their hand, right? It takes a lot of guts to raise your hand. And so what people want at this level is safety in process. So yeah, I booked a call, but I could always cancel it because I'm in control of the process. Yeah, I've organized a meeting with our management team and you're going to come along and show us this thing that you sell. But you know what? We could cancel that management meeting if we want to, because I want to retain control. In fact, the moment we take control away, people start to feel unsafe. Now there's control in the perception of control, but process allows them to cancel. And then we've got this thing set up. And then they move into this next phase in here where they're looking at what we're doing. We might be having some preliminary conversations. In fact, we're engaging with them. And this could be some video content that we send in advance. It could be a landing page we share with them. The best kind of prior engagement is try before you buy. Why don't you take a sample, etc. We're engaging with them, but what they want is safety in privacy. I want to try your thing on. There's a reason why in clothing shops, the place you got to try the clothes on is private, right? Because no one wants to stand out in the middle of the shop, rip the shirt off, put another shirt on and go, so everybody, what does that look like? Does that look good on me? Right? Because people want to be able to try your product on in privacy, whatever way you can set that up. How do you let people have a sense of try before you buy if you can't actually do it, right? And so the best way to sell a car, quite frankly, is to throw the keys to the customer and say, take it home for the weekend. A lot of those cars don't come back. They go, you know what, I'm buying it. But companies go, oh, you can't do it like that. And then this last step is converting. And this is a really interesting step because if the customers felt safer with you than they do without you all the way through, they felt safe in anonymity, safe in numbers, safe in process, and safe in privacy, then the last step is they get safety in commitment. The safest way for me to move forward is to actually buy from you. And this is trusting. I trust you. And so this top line down here is the seller's agenda, marketing, selling, and converting. This bottom line is the buyer's agenda. I want to keep my hand down. I want to be in the room. I'll raise my hand. I need time to engage with it. Now I trust you. I'm going to buy from you. So we talk about these buyer safety is actually a process, 5 levels of buyer safety. Now, if you actually did that, the sale starts to take care of itself. But the question is, what's our marketing like? How safe does it make them? How effective is our marketing whilst letting the customer have anonymity? How do we let people raise their hands but still feel okay about that? What's the process someone goes into when they first let us see them as an individual? Do we click them into a funnel? That they want to leave the funnel and 3 other pop-ups come up to say, well, have you thought about this product? Have you thought about this product? Have you thought about this product? There's no escaping the funnel. And all of those processes work, but I'm really focused on the complex product or service where there's resistance or suspicion, and in a world where people just want to be understood and made safe. And I don't actually think any customer likes marketing and sales funnels where you just can't get out of the funnel without getting another offer page put in front of you and another offer page put in front of you. So it's kind of counter to a lot of the marketing and sales out there today. But the reality is we have people selling like this all day, every day of the week. And the number one issue for safety is transparency of communication. So what the Sage does differently to everybody else is communicate with absolute transparency. And so we set out looking for the tool that we could use for transparency of communication. And we realized it was visual models like the one you're seeing in front of you. When you draw stuff, you draw people in. When you let people see what you're talking about rather than telling them what you're talking about, everything changes. So that's a fairly shallow skim over buyer safety.
Shallow skim. Simon, it's superb. Absolutely love it. If people are listening to this as a podcast, I would encourage them to get over onto YouTube, where we're also going to put a copy of this or a version of the show so they can see well, not just the end product, but how you were drawing and adding pieces as it went along. I'm not sure if I'm on screen at that stage, but but I'm just like in awe of how elegant it is. It just makes so much sense. If I wanted to argue with any of that, which I don't, I couldn't. Why would I? Because it just makes sense. And for me, it's what I kept thinking is the way you kept saying, this is what we're doing, but this is what the buyer wants. This is what we're doing, but this is what the buyer wants. This is what we're doing because it's what the buyer wants. Selling isn't something you do to somebody. It's all about with them, and you're starting with them. That's how they're thinking. That's how they're feeling. That's what they're wanting. So let's do this because
Yeah.
that will be more comfortable for them, safe. We will progress. It's a natural journey. We're not pushing them down,
Yeah.
forcing them down the funnel. It's what I want to go to the next bit because I'm okay with this. You get
Yeah.
me. Go back to what you said. You get me, and I'm feeling okay with this. I'll make the next little step. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the more transparent the communication and the more we leave the decision with them, the easier the sale and the better the quality of client as well. The best clients are the people that actually made the decision themselves.
Yeah.
They weren't sold into the decision. They chose you based on how you showed up. I mean, there's a world of difference between those two things. It doesn't sound like much in a statement, but the best clients are the people that chose you because of how you showed up, not the people that were sold into the decision because of how you sold. And there's a world of difference between those two. So now what's interesting is no one wants to buy your ego. People want to buy their own ego, their own sense of identity. No one wants to buy your ego. So no one wants to buy from you if you say you're the best in the world at it. No one wants to buy from you if you say you've got this solution that no one else has got. I mean, that's ego-based selling. People want to buy from you if you make them look better, be better, get better results. No one wants to buy your ego. They're all busy buying their own ego. And so if we can make people the hero client and actually let them have the win, everything changes. So this is a real reversal of positioning and thinking, though. It requires people to sometimes people wrestle with this saying, so you're telling me not to sell. I often say to people, stop selling and sell more.
Yeah.
Stop selling, you'll sell more. Stop selling, start facilitating.
Yeah.
When you were talking about, as I was walking through that model and I was drawing, right, and opening pieces up as I was going, what I was doing was facilitating, not selling.
Yeah.
But if I'd gotten to the end of that and said, I've got a little program I'm going to run on buyer safety, people will buy that because of what I've just walked through. If I'd said, I've got this workshop I'm going to do on buyer safety, I'm going to help you get deeper inside of that and help you unpack each of these 5 stages, I would make the sale off that. But all I'm doing is facilitating people through.
And do you, sir?
So we talk about buyer safety inside our bigger program. We have a program called Create My Models, where we create the 5 core sales models, including the Genius model. And then we layer buyer safety underneath that as the philosophy around selling. So, when you facilitate, you sell more. But we became so bent up in, I just want to, I'm mindful of time and timing, and we don't want to make this a super long thing for people to have to listen to. But there's a really big thing I'd love to just point out. People have an intensity about them from high to low. And then we have time scale. Now, the 2 great contexts are time and expectation. What will I get? And time is the great leveler. Time settles everything. Time compounds everything, good and bad. Time always wins. There's 3 time zones. If you're ahead of time, you get a strategic advantage. If you're behind time, you're at a strategic disadvantage. And if you're in time, you're just in the market with everybody else. So time is one of the great contexts. And then expectation, what do I get from it? And so when we're selling to people, they have this intensity about them from high to low. And people have hard wiring for resistance. So people come to almost every conversation with a level of hardwired resistance. In other words, we have as humans a hardwired system for saying no. And of course we do, because it's how we protect ourselves. But it shows up in lots and lots of ways. People go, oh, thank you so much. That was wonderful. You're amazing. And people go, no, it was nothing really. I was just doing my job. Like even at subtle levels, we say no. We're hardwired to say no. Now that by itself isn't a revelation, but the real problem is that at the same time, we have a low resistance, we have a low intensity for acceptance. So we do not have any hard wiring for saying yes. And what that means is that we've got this big gap in the middle between the two. So you're selling a product or service. People have a hardwired resistance, a system for saying no, no real system for acceptance or saying yes. And in order to make the sale happen sooner, this crossing over where the curves reverse, that's what we call conversion. Conversion is nothing more than the reversal of the resistance and acceptance curves. That's all it is. They've converted to your idea. Now, in order to try and get the sale to happen sooner, what do? We apply pressure. And if you put pressure inside a closed vessel, what happens to the sides of the vessel? They just get further apart. They don't come together. They expand outwards. So if we sell in the old kind of pressure sales style, we're just pushing those two lines further apart. But if we can get these two curves to flip quickly, if there was a way, we could pop out the other side where instead of selling, we're actually facilitating, which is us talking about, well, how could we make that happen? And we just happen to discover that the moment we put a visual model in front of somebody, we almost immediately move to this point of conversion. Because now it's you and me looking at the models. It's not me shoving my idea at you and you trying to resist it. It's just you and me building a model together. Just carefully, subtly, elegantly understanding this framework, this building. I'm no longer selling myself, I'm selling the model. It's like the model's got its own identity. I'm just sharing this model with you. And these curves flip really quickly and the pressure goes out of the sale and we just step into facilitation. And now we can really focus on making the buyer safer all the way through. It's a really big idea.
No, it absolutely is. I do have an eye on the time, and it's not because I don't want to sit and listen all day. And I suspect people listening will be very happy for you to carry on. But I know that you're also a busy guy because a lot of people want to speak to you about this stuff. So that's fantastic stuff. If there's one big thing from this, I guess it's that flip, isn't it? As to kind of this buyer safety, stop forcing, stop pushing, stop trying to, do the old fashioned icky selling. It's buyer first. But actually, buyer first is one way of putting it, but you've taken it to another level with buyer safety. What are they going through? What are they thinking? How do we align to that? And how do we get that message across so elegantly?
Yeah. So I think about when people become customers, there's 4 levels. Some companies disappoint the customer. It should never happen, but it happens too often. Some companies deliver what was promised and they act like that's good, but actually they're delivering what they should have done. So good job. And then everyone got fascinated with delight the customer, which is commendable, but it's been positioned as if this is the pinnacle, delight the customer delight, customer first. I think there's another level, and that is defend the customer. Defend the hell out of the customer, even before they're a customer. So we've taken a position as a company that we are a kindness and complaint-free driven company. I caught our team one day having a conversation about a customer, and it wasn't positive. And so I told them I didn't ever want to hear a customer spoken about negatively again. We seduced them and married them. So, let's separate nicely if we don't want to work with them, but we're going to defend the hell out of the customer. And we've taken a really clear position on being a kindness and complaint-free driven company because business should be noble and sell to people that you're happy to defend the hell out of. So here's an interesting question, and maybe we could wrap this up, Fred, with a challenge to everybody. Don't sell to somebody if you're not willing to defend the hell out of them. If as you meet a customer, you're not willing to defend the hell out of them, don't take them on as a customer, don't sell to them. Let's keep this real simple because you can't make them safe if you're not willing to defend the hell out. Now, what does that mean? They complain about something. Your first thought should be, let's find out what's going on. Doesn't mean they're right, but let's find out what's going on. And let's do it quickly. Let's get this resolved. Something goes wrong and it's their fault. You don't make them stupid. You get it sorted with them, right? Defend the hell out of the customer. And so we could probably wrap up today with a bit of a challenge, which is it's time that selling became a force for good. Marcus Cauchi, a mutual friend of yours and mine, and I were having a conversation about biosafety. And at the same time, Marcus said, "Oh, that's so interesting because I've got this idea of sales as a force for good." And I'm going, that is absolutely what selling should be. Sales should be the most noble thing companies do. So maybe it's a challenge we're throwing out to people that are listening to this or watching this. Think about how you sell as a powerful force for good. How do you make selling the most noble thing you do? How do you interrogate your marketing and sales so that every step makes the buyer safer with you than they would be without you? Bring that down to practical steps, the links you send them, the conversations they have, the sequence that you have them in. Does every step of your process protect and defend the customer, or does it put them at risk? Does it make them safer, or does it put them at risk? And if you do that, then make sure that you know them intimately because they want to be understood and made safe. And stop selling, start facilitating. Stop using industrial age sales techniques that are completely outdated in a 21st century internet, hyperconnected, artificially intelligent world. Because the industrial age is behind us. And that's where all of the most common sales strategies were developed. And, it's about what are we going to do in business? Are we going to be better at this? And that means we've got to become the sage and let the client be the hero. Profound genius framed in a way that has practical simplicity and lets you show up with powerful calm. But the challenge is on. If you listen to this, take a deep look at how you're selling right now and ask the question, what could we do to make the customer safer as they move through our process?
I'm on board with that. I'm not going to try and summarize that. One elegant summary, every single thing. And there is so much in there. Sometimes you get a podcast, and I know some people listen on like double speed or 1.5. There's some things I think you need to go back and listen to it on like 0.5 because you just said so much in that last 90 seconds. So many things, which I will encourage people to really think about. Now, I know you also massively practice what you preach, very generous in the stuff that you share. You are on a crusade with this and want to help. If you're going to talk about the sage, you've got to be the sage, and you share so generously. So how can people get in touch, and how can they start to get some of the good stuff that you put out?
I'm on LinkedIn regularly all the time. I communicate with our mailing list twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I share this kind of stuff with people.
Yeah.
I write all the emails. There's no one writing my emails for me. So really the best thing for people to do is just to go to our website, modelsmethod.com. On the homepage, they can request the download, and that'll put them into our mailing list, and they can hang around, and if it makes sense to people at the right time, certain people will show up and other people will just get a lot of good information. And there's a bunch of tools that we have. What I could do, Fred, is shoot you a link as well for a little lead magnet that we often use, which is how you can use the bell curve to take price out of the conversation.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
So it's just
Please do.
It's got 7 little steps for people to take the bell curve and build this in. A little video of me walking through it, and it just shows you how you can use the bell curve to kind of eliminate price out of the conversation. Both of those two things, our website and that little gift, will mean people end up in our email list, and they'll start hearing from me on a Tuesday and a Thursday, where I share this kind of stuff that we've been talking about in the form of email. Yeah.
I would massively encourage people to do that. Send me the links. We will pop those into the show notes. And as I say, we'll encourage people to do that. Well, I get those emails. They're great.
Yep.
They're really quick to read. They're nice and short. I can hear your voice in them. But then about another 5-10 minutes, start thinking about them.
Yeah.
No, they're very valuable. They're very valuable from that point of view. As was this whole session. Thank you so much for making time for this. Oh, I'm going to go back and watch this straight away again because I've picked up so much from it. And I'm sure the listeners will too. So thank you.
Thank you for having me on. All right.
No, my pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, Fred Copestake. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe for more and leave a review. If you didn't like it, also leave a review. It's all about feedback and learning.